And joining us now, Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik of New York. She serves on the House Intelligence Committee and is the author of a brand new, very important new book entitled Poisoned Ivies, the inside account of the academic and moral rot at America's elite universities. Congresswoman, thanks very much for coming in. Thanks for writing this important book. We're going to discuss it shortly, but let's get to some of the important news of the day first before we get to Poisoned Ivies. I love the title. Tell us about that as well. President Trump has repeatedly claimed victory against Iran since the conflict began, only to continue with all the fighting that's going on. Now he says the war is, quote, very close to over. Is that real?
Well, look at the military achievements. The U.S. successfully destroyed the Iranian Navy, the Iranian Army, the missile capabilities, and has opened up the Strait of Hormuz to an international waterway, not allowing Iran to hold that hostage. And if you take a step back, Wolf, this is a terrorist regime. This goes back to 1979. It's the largest state sponsor of terrorism, funding Hamas and Hezbollah. They have blood of U.S. soldiers on their hands. They funded the October 7th attacks against Israel. So this was a very strong peace through strength military operation, and it shows the success of the greatest military in the world with a very decisive commander-in-chief.
When you say peace through strength, what do you mean by that? Because as you know, 13 service members have been killed.
And I represent Fort Drum, home of the 10th Mountain Division, the most deployed division in the U.S. Army since 9/11, where you had members of that military division who have been targeted and killed over the past decades by the Iranian terrorist regime and Iranian-backed militias. Our heart goes out to those service members who borne the ultimate sacrifice serving our nation. And we are keeping that in mind, and the president is every single day. But we have to take a step back, Pam. Iran has created war in the Middle East for decades, sowing chaos. It is a blood-stained terrorist regime, and to have peace in the long term, you have to get rid of the Iranian terrorist regime to bring peace to the Middle East. And it frankly has strengthened our alliances with countries like UAE, with countries like Saudi Arabia, and of course a very close ally, Israel.
I want to just follow up with you because there's the military operation aspect of this, what's happening in the Middle East, and then there's the politics of it, what's happening with the economy. I imagine you're hearing from your constituents on this. President Trump conceded to Fox News that the war with Iran will slow economic growth for some time. Do you agree with that assessment? And how much more challenging does it make your job ahead of the midterms, trying to keep control of Congress for the Republicans?
Well, first of all, we're having this conversation on an important day in domestic economic politics. So it's tax day in the United States, and Americans are having historic tax cuts because of the reconciliation bill we passed. And particularly in New York, I delivered the largest tax cut in history with the quadrupling of the state and local tax deduction. And I'm hearing from constituents who are saying, thank goodness you passed this tax bill. Certainly the president is correct that there are economic challenges in the short term, but this military operation is important not only for our national security, but for economic security for the long run. We are very focused on lowering the cost of living and making it more affordable, which is why, particularly in New York, I've been such an outspoken leader in lowering taxes, in lowering energy prices. And that's a challenge in a state like New York with single-party Democrat rule, where they continue to raise taxes, including today, where our state governor broke her promise and put forth a tax hike when people are already paying so much.
CNN exclusively reported last week, Congresswoman, that U.S. intelligence indicates China is preparing to deliver new air defense systems to Iran within the next few weeks. President Trump now says China has agreed not to send weapons to Iran. Can and should President Trump trust the Chinese leader Xi Jinping?
Well, first of all, President Trump is masterful in terms of the leadership he shows on the global stage, and other leaders of countries, whether they're adversaries, whether they're competitors, or whether they're allies, they fear President Trump. And I think a weak Iran weakens China. This is geostrategically in a smart decision for the United States and for, frankly, our principles, our Western civilization principles.
I just want to follow up with what you told me earlier. You said this war has strengthened our relationship with allies, but what about NATO allies? As you know,
NATO allies, Western European NATO allies, have been incredibly disappointing, and the president was correct in calling them out, particularly the French, particularly the Spanish, and the Italians, who have turned their backs. And it's frankly the U.S. that has propped up NATO, Pam, and we are the reason, under, frankly, President Trump's tough leadership, that countries in NATO have been forced to increase their defense spending. Where it has strengthened our allies is with our Eastern European NATO allies, and particularly our alliances within the Middle East. This Iranian Iranian rogue regime has frankly forced the other countries in the Middle East to strengthen their allies to counter this terrorist regime.
But should the administration given the allies a heads up about this? Because as you know, this has deeply impacted them and their economies.
And
should the U.S. withdraw from NATO given what you laid out?
No, they should step up. Those other allies should hold their end of the bargain, and it is incredibly disappointing. And I am so proud that we have stood strong as Americans in terms of leading to open up this international waterway and not allow countries like French and like Spain and like Italy, which has been incredibly disappointing that they have not been there, because this impacts not only their national security in terms of Iranian missiles targeting Europe, but it impacts their economic security as well.
The war has divided not only countries, but as you know, Congresswoman, President Trump and Pope Leo are also split right now on several of these issues. You're a proud Catholic, as we all know. Is it appropriate for a wartime president to repeatedly attack the first American Pope because the Pope has been speaking out against this conflict?
Well, certainly I'm proud that we have the first American Pope. I don't want to see the Pope as a politician. And, you know, the president, we know his leadership style. He is going to stand strong for the American people. And the president of the United States is a political figure. Of course, he's going to be engaged in politics when he's politically attacked. I don't want to see the Pope get involved in domestic politics. What I think we can highlight as Catholics, for myself, is the increased number of new Catholics entering the church, and that's a great success for the Catholic Church long term.
We've also seen the president post that AI-generated image of himself as the Pope and as Jesus, if you will, which he later deleted and said portrayed him as a doctor. In your view, were those posts blasphemy?
Certainly, the president made the correct decision in taking it down. And look, I know CNN loves to focus on the tweets and memes of President Trump. I look at his record of results. He has strong support from Catholics like me, and I've been proud of our record. And, you know, the media can continue talking about the tweets. I talk about the results. He's focused on bringing peace to the Middle East.
But it is notable he's attacking the first American Pope, and it is Republicans who are Catholics who are also coming out against
The Pope should not be attacking. The Pope, from my perspective, should not be engaging in political attacks. I don't want to see the Pope as a politician. I want to see the Pope continue to focus on this resurgence that we're seeing in the Catholic Church.
Focusing on the gospel, as he has said. He says, I'm not getting involved in politics, I'm focusing on the gospel. You don't see it that way.
I don't believe that the Pope should function as a politician. President Trump is a political leader, and he is a strong political leader, so I was disappointed to see that attack from the Pope, and I know CNN wants to continue to focus on these tweets. This is what has been happening for the past 10 years. Look at the results. Look at historically the historic number of support from Catholics for President Trump, from Catholics for House Republicans as well.
Right. This isn't about CNN trying to focus on it. It is notable. There is
news value. But you just asked how many questions on it, Pam? One after the other.
Well, I'll ask follow-up questions because that they were warranted. But let me ask you about something else from our own reporting here at CNN. You know, we're going to get to your book. Your book is all about so-called moral rot at colleges and universities. We're going to dive deeper into your book in just a moment. But given everything we've seen in Congress over the past few days since our exclusive reporting last Friday, the resignations of Democrat Eric Swalwell and Republican Tony Gonzalez amid the allegations of inappropriate sexual relationships with staff, is there also moral rot in the halls of the Capitol?
Well, Eric Swalwell's situation, I mean, this is Nancy Pelosi's protege in California. He's a previous presidential candidate. It is deeply disturbing, and frankly, I believe criminal crimes were committed. If you look at...
He denies those.
But I've said what I believe, that we are going to find that, and it's deeply disturbing. And I think it's, frankly, the media should have done more coverage of this. This was sort of whispered about for many, many years.
But you were in the control of Congress. Why didn't you do more about it being in
Listen, I'm one of Eric Swalwell's biggest political foes, and I think correctly he was forced to resign, but that was after only the public came forward and these brave women and frankly staff members came forward. I think that every member, if there are these type of scandalous behaviors, they need to resign immediately, no matter what party they're in. And the leaders of both parties have to take this more seriously. It used to be, Pam, in the day, and I've been through 6 speakers since I've been in Congress, where they would bring in, when there were any of these type of accusations, and there would be a much earlier resignation. And I think it's an indictment, frankly, of the institution. And you're seeing many voices speaking up saying enough is enough.
Should more Republicans have called for Gonzalez to resign earlier? I know that those calls came after the Swalwell allegations, and I know you did after the allegations came to light. And should Corey Mills, who is under a House ethics investigation, a Republican congressman, resign just as the morally right thing to do?
My advice as a member of Congress is these members need to look in the mirror and really they know if they have been conducting themselves unfitting for the office, and they need to resign. You have to hold yourself to a higher standard. And frankly, we had strengthened rules in the institution of the U.S. Congress that were passed in 2018, 2019 that frankly have not been abided by. So it needs to be a swift ethics process, and those members should resign.
Critics, including Democrats, argue there's a double standard right now when it comes to sexual misconduct. Back in 2023, a Manhattan federal jury found in a civil lawsuit that Donald Trump sexually abused E. Jean Carroll in the spring of 1996 and awarded her $5 million for battery and defamation. Trump denied all wrongdoing in that case. CNN reporting has also documented multiple women who have come forward with public allegations of sexual misconduct against Donald Trump. All the alleged incidents took place prior to his assuming the presidency, as you know, and Trump has repeatedly denied all the claims, calling them fabrications. No criminal charges have resulted from them. Do you give any credence at all to this question of whether there's a double standard going on?
There's absolutely not a double standard. If anything, the media is not focused on holding Democrats to account, and there's been an obsession with lawfare going after.
We just had the reporting Friday.
After he was forced out. After he was forced out, Pam, did you ever ask tough questions? After he was forced out by the public. After Eric Swalwell was forced to resign.
I did the reporting with my team, Casey Tolan,
just recently,
Isabel Chapman, and Shoshana.
Just recently.
Before he resigned.
Before he resigned, and then
Eric Swalwell is a protege of Nancy Pelosi. Ran for president of the United States, has an FEC report that's public about all these expenditures with these women. And the fact that there was no media scrutiny whatsoever, and to your question, Wolf, which was a substantive question, and because I'm from the state of New York, there has been a history of weaponized lawfare against President Trump. Look at the text, look at the videos of Eric Swalwell, look at the staff members' statements. That is very different than the lawfare and the politicization that we have seen.
I want you to stay with us. We have more questions. I want to also discuss Poisoned Ivies, your new book. We'll discuss that, what's going on. We have more in our next block.
I want to know, Allie Gordon was also part of that reporting team.